Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Angie Bailey. I'm here on behalf of the Miramar Pembroke Pines Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Western Florida Chamber of Commerce, and the Pembroke Park West Park Chamber of Commerce. Today's Chamber University session is led by Lisa Perez. She is a USA Today bestselling author and founder and president of HBL Resources, the Complete Manager Makeover, and National Management Training Week. With more than 30 years of experience in human resources, leadership development, and training, Lisa is on a mission to transform the human in human resources. She is a DISC certified human behavior specialist, a certified bridge builder, and a nationally recognized speaker who has presented for SHRM, HR Florida, and chambers of commerce and major corporations nationwide. In the ultimate persuasion equation today, how to boost sales without selling, Lisa is going to show you how to use the DISC model of human behavior to connect more effectively with buyers and prospects. This is going to be an interactive session focusing on understanding personality and behavior styles and adapting your communication to match how people prefer to buy and building credibility through influence rather than through pressure. And hopefully you'll leave here today with some practical behavior-based sales strategies that you can apply immediately, no matter your role or experience level. So Miss Lisa, take it away. I'm very excited.
Awesome. So am I. Well, thank you so much for coming. By a show of hands, how many of you were at our Women in Business event? We just had it, I believe it was last month in November, where I got like 15, 20 minutes to share about the DISC model of human behavior and the effective selling model. Give me a digital hands up. And if you're on camera, I love you being on camera. That's the best way to interact. Give me a raised hand as well. Anybody at that event? Okay, so we've got some new ones all together. So we're going to take it from the top then, which we would have done anyway. Full disclosure, I have been doing this session for several years. However, it's usually about a 2.5, 3 hour session. So we're going to give a big flyby, but still make sure you're walking away with stuff that you can practically apply to your selling game. Okay. Now, I have been an entrepreneur now for, it's going to be 15 years this August, 2026. And I use the stuff that I am going to be sharing with you today. I do have the chat window open as well. I've got my screen that I'm looking at. I've got your beautiful faces that I want to see as well. So I'm going to be looking all around, but I am taking note of that chat. If for some reason you've got a question, go ahead and pop that in. Feel free to raise your digital hand. Angie will help me make sure that we can see that digital hand being raised and stop me in the moment so that you can answer that live when that conversation is happening. And I'm happy to take some at the end as well. So let's get started with this model of human behavior and really talking about some of the fundamentals of sales, because when we think about sales strategies, it's important that we have some framework, okay? And Angie has already introduced me, so thank you so much for that. And I am sharing the wrong screen. I see that already. That was what we were talking about yesterday in my class. This one is, let's close that one so that I don't confuse myself. My apologies for that. And let me pull up the correct one. Well, while I do that, how many of you are familiar with the model of human behavior? By a show of hands, and have maybe taken the exam, if you will. How many have? No? Yeah, okay. Angie has. Paulo, did I see you raising your hand? Nobody is familiar with the DISC model of human behavior? You've taken the assessment? Nothing like that? Well, you're in for a treat then. So let me jump right in. So we do have one person. Let me see who that is. Oscar has been familiarized with that. Okay. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you have too many PowerPoints open at the same time. Here we go. Okay, so like I mentioned, we usually have this for about 2.5 hour sessions. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to do some fundamentals in terms of the sale process, kind of get an overview of that. And then we're going to take a look at, what about your ideal client avatar, right? Who do you sell to? You might hear the term target market. I hate that. I feel like I've got this big bullseye on my back when I say that. I like to say the people I like to serve, right? The clients I like to serve, the businesses that I like to serve. And that sounds a little bit more agreeable to me. In addition to that, we're going to talk about the AIDA model of selling. We're not going to go into great detail, but I think it's important, especially in today's world of social media and all of the steps in the marketing funnel, if you will, that we have an awareness of what that looks like to make a client or to get a prospective customer to buy from you. So we'll take a look at what that journey looks like. And then we're going to understand behavior styles. We'll take a look at the DISC model of human behavior, and that content easily can fill a 40-hour work week of course material. And I train all things DISC, and this is just a carve out of that. And we'll talk about what are the things we should be saying and listening for as we have that buy-sell relationship. What do the communication processes look like? What does the proposal maybe look like? Now go ahead and in the chat, I'd love to hear a little bit about the companies or the businesses that are in the room. And are you business to business? Does your company sell to other businesses? Or are you B2C, business to consumer? So B2B is business to business, B2C, business to consumer. Maybe you have an individual client, right? Maybe a therapy, maybe you're physical therapist. You're looking for the person, not necessarily a business. So in the chat, this will help me kind of frame some of the conversation going forward. And as I create some scenarios, I can use some real world examples based on the businesses that are represented here today. Okay. I think we have a few too many to go around the room. So if you'll put that in there, that's going to help me. And then that's also going to give you some real life examples if I can think about them quick enough. Okay. So let's kind of jump right in. The sales process is very wide, right? There's so many different components of that. And instead of casting your net so wide and so broad and saying, I sell to everyone, you tend to want to narrow it down and continue to focus on those individuals or companies that you specifically quote target, right? That you specifically want to support or work with. It allows for better results when you have a buyer persona, right? It's also known as a client avatar. So I'll share with you some of the client avatars that I have for my business, and you'll start to think about the people that you want to work for if you haven't already drilled that down. Now, for customer B2B customers, custom software development, right? You're probably creating automations, Daniel, right? Creating websites that work, right? Is another one. Oscar, hello, I see you there. For clients and everyone, right? That everyone, sure, it may mean that, but they also have to afford it, right? So you might not sell to someone who's income might be less than, I don't know, $35,000, right? And so as you really start to think about who do I sell to, right? My clients, they tend to be anywhere between 1 employee and 99 employees, and that can serve them in one product line of my business. But I have companies that have thousands of employees and they just do the training and development of their managers, right? Each different product or service might be geared to different individuals or different businesses. That is the client avatar, okay? And so that's important because you're going to save time selling and you'll keep your pipeline healthy, particularly during the prospecting stage, so that you know that person is definitely someone in the uh, business or individuals of those you want to support. For the purpose of this, we'll use that target market uh, terminology, because when you're creating that buyer persona, you can look at databases. If you already don't know, there's a great database here in the city of Miramar called Size Up. And maybe Angie, if you know that website, I think it's sizeupmiramar.com. If you can maybe Google that, pop that in as a resource for our participants today. Why is that important? It's a prospecting haven, my friends. You can find businesses in your geographic area. You can find their revenues. You can find how many employees they have. I know for me, that's critically important. It also has residential information. So we have Paulo here. He's with B2C Travel Agency. And so I think that the size up, because it has access to resident information, well, you might decide that there are certain communities that have the income levels, right? That would require, because if you're selling Virgin hotels, that might be a little bit different than selling Carnival hotels, different price points, right? And of course, right, luxury transportation, limo services. You want to continue to look at the demographics of the areas that you are networking in, going to meetups, right? Things of that nature, so that you can look for the clients that you're looking to support. It's also important to understand, what are the pain points, right? We heard that before. What are their preferences, right? If it doesn't matter to me that I'm in a luxury limo versus what's that big car out there, a BMW versus an Acura, then it's not going to make a big difference, right? We need to know who we are speaking to. We want to also make sure we're um, speaking their language. So prospecting becomes very, very important. So when we think about demographics, here is one of the demographics that we serve. Here's Robin, right? I call Robin is, male or female. Their demographic, 25 to 30 years old, and they're a self-developing manager, right? This person is someone who has maybe a 2-year degree. They might be pursuing their current managerial role. They prefer to communicate via text or maybe WhatsApp. Why is all of this detail so important? I encourage you, take a screenshot here. It's also going to be on the recording, and find all that information of the client that you're looking to serve. Here's why that's important. It's important because now, based on this information, I can find out a little about, where would I encounter Robin? Where would I find Robin in terms of where they might be hanging out, right? What meetups are they going to? Are they parts of chambers? The more you can decide on that, the better. Now, if you are someone that is like Michelle, wellness and aesthetic medical spa, right? Med spa, and you will want to cater to women between the ages of, I'll just throw something out, right? 30 and 55, right? Then where is that person going to be? What is their interest? What kind of income do they have? And the more you build that out, the more you'll be able to say, you know what? I can't call home for this person between the hours of 3 and 5, because guess what? Their children just might have gotten home, right? If that's the demographic. And the more you build out who it is you serve, the better that information will serve you when prospecting. And then, of course, there's qualification. You want to dig as deep as you can and try to know everything about that prospect to ensure you're on the right path, because not everybody is your customer, right? For many solopreneurs that may just have 0 employees, for my business as a human resources consultant, well, and if they're not looking to grow and want to stay in that solopreneurship, then that I can't help them with their hiring process or their recruitment infrastructure, right? Understanding if the prospect needs your product is critical in qualifying whether or not they are your customer, right? Do additional research, browse through their websites if you're B2B, right? Find the information on Size Up, because many times if a company is not a little bit over that $500,000 revenue, they may not be able to or interested in investing in my HR membership, right? That I use for small businesses. So if they're $250,000 in revenue and below, they might not want to take that $199 a month and invest in their business, right? They might want to grow a little bit and then consider it. So those are things that are critically important as well. Thank you, Angie. She's gone ahead and put that Miramar, Florida size up as a resource in helping you in prospecting and qualifying as well. Once you've prospect, somebody's interested, you've qualified the fact that they're interested in that cruise, or they're interested in getting some custom software for their business. Now we're setting the appointments, right? And I love apps like Calendly.com. There's a free version where you can get one link to schedule your appointments. It was a game changer in my business in terms of being able to schedule those sales calls. It integrates with my Microsoft Office. I can send the link and say, oh, I'd love to meet you and learn more and see how we can support you. Here's my calendar link, and it opens my calendar of availability. It blocks everything on my Microsoft, or in some cases, your Google Calendar, and it only gives them your available times. Maybe you block Monday and Friday and only do it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever you want to do. But Calendly.com, if you don't know about it, you should. It's awesome. So appointment setting is important because meetings really are the best way to display the value proposition of your product or service. And I know that word gets thrown around all the time, right? What does that mean, value proposition? It's really what makes you unique. Of all the different companies that do what you do, nobody does it the way you do. You are truly unique. And the value proposition is what makes you unique. If we're talking about me, well, I'm dual certified in the country. I have certifications for my business to offer recertification credits to HR people if they want the HR training, right? I am fully insured, general liability, and errors and omissions, right? What makes you unique and best in class in what you do? That's what the appointment really is about. Making sure that you can articulate why you, right? There's many travel agents, but there's only one Paolo, right? There's many property insurance agencies. There's only one Temi, right? And what is it that makes you unique? It sounds like, you can't excel in this sales process step without, breaking a sweat. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to think about in that, right? But it can be a little bit tiresome. But if you prepare your appointment setting, prepare your questions to make sure that they're the ones that are talking more. If you're talking more during the sales appointment than the person is, there's a problem there, right? You want to be listening. Lead with a conversation that understands the prospect's concerns, provide the necessary information that they need, gather the information that you need so that when you get to the presentation, you're ready to display the unique value. I'm a big believer in making sure that everything they told me, oh, I need this and I have that and this is a problem and I can't fix that and I've got no benefits and blah, blah, blah. When I'm showing up for that presentation, I don't usually do a whole sales slides deck and all the stuff. If we've gotten to the presentation and the appointment already, they've Googled enough about me. You've done the research already. I tend not to do the dog and pony show, right? And so this is really about addressing everything they told you in the appointment. These are the initial steps where you can articulate, well, you said you needed this, and here's what I provide. You said you needed that, and here's how we solve that for you. This is what you needed, and maybe for travel that looks like, well, you said you wanted a 2-week vacation on the most luxury place with the most exotic excursions, and you wanted your own private tour when you got there. You said all of this, and here's where each of those things get delivered, right? That's the way that you say, I'm your person when it comes to the product and service that you have for that person. Show them how your product can streamline their business or any of those things. When we talk about the DISC model, we'll talk about specifically what to do based on their behavior style. And we'll also talk about how you might figure out what that behavior style is. And we might walk away knowing our primary style here today as well. But this presentation really should speak about the problem that they faced by the prospect and how your product or service helps overcome that issue. I think sometimes we get caught up, and don't forget any questions. I'm happy to take those in the chat. I am watching that. I think sometimes we get so caught up in talking about ourselves, right? I've done this and I've done that, and I work for this one and I've worked for that one. That may not be the most appropriate strategy, right? This conversation is really about what it is you do that they need, right? And that they've articulated already. And remember, that size up website, you have an opportunity to study your competitors, show how your prospects show your prospects how you're better than the rest. Now, I never, ever, ever trash a competitor. I don't even believe in competition. I believe in abundance. There's enough to go around, right? And so when you come at it from that frame of reference, I always say I'm not better or worse. I'm just different. And let me articulate how I'm different, right? And then you give those value propositions. Your presentation should be precise yet informative. It should tend to be 15 or 20 minutes to get all the information. I do an executive summary call, right? I don't send any proposals. You cannot get a proposal from me without showing up on an executive summary call. And that wasn't always the case. I found that my proposals are very lengthy, they're very detailed. I kind of give away the kitchen sink. And the executive summary call really helped me convert the sale so that I could explain that process I just shared with you. The presentation being all about this is what you said you needed, this is where in the proposal we meet that need. Coming at it from that frame of reference has really accelerated my closing ratio. And then, of course, you always want to be ready for objections, right? It's too much, it's to this, it's to that, and I'll share a couple of the strategies that I have. But the sales objection is going to always be one common hurdle that most sellers face in the sales journey. No company is easily going to invest in a solution, right? Especially depending on what the investment of your product and service is, right? We don't make 15, 16, $1,700 choices or purchases off the whim. I don't know about you. I know I don't. Okay, maybe you do. And so when we think about objections, you should be figuring out what those are well before that person articulates them in the conversation. If it's luxury transportation and limo services, it might be, well, what if there's a breakdown, right? What if you're late, right, to getting at the venue, right? Be able to understand, and this is something that you should be doing based on past sales conversations as well. I have a complete list of different things that I have heard over my years of the reasons why people hesitate to invest in their HR infrastructure or their handbook or their this or their that. And I've curated that list and the responses to each of those objections. And now it just rolls off the tongue, right? For most of my clients, I'm going to give them choices. Oh, the optimal solution gives you everything you said you needed, right? You said you needed all this. This is that solution. Now, if that's not something and you want to do a little bit something different, then I give a few choices, and you'll see why that's important here in a moment when we cue up the model of human behavior. So consider how you answer the objections to any of those sales objections. Don't abandon the question. And if you don't know a reason, then start figuring out what those might be. That's a good question. And that's a valid concern. I'm going to get back to you to address that, but definitely start to curate the list of those things. Obviously, we want to make sure that if you are facing common objections to, I hear that's too expensive, right? That's bigger than the investment that I expected. And I won't come down in price, but I'll say, well, instead of this package, if we go to this package, that might be a little bit more affordable, but I never discount my pricing. So then we've got the closing, right? The final verdict, the sales process, the make it or break it moment. Did you get the sale? And I never say lose the sale. I say it might be deferred because I'm a big believer. It may not be a no, it might be a not now. I've had some conversations where I've waited 18 months for a client to say yes, finally, and I just nurtured the relationship, checked in, continued to be, network with them and shake hands and all the things. And that client stayed with me for 4 years after they signed. So it's not a lost deal. It's not a no. It might just be a not just now. So continue to consider those things. I'm a big believer in words for the selling as well, right? Avoid words like discount. Discount in a survey decreased closing ratios by 17%. You know what I use? Preferred pricing. And I use preferred pricing particularly if I have a long-term client or if I have a chamber client, right? Those are things I don't say discount, but you will get preferred pricing because of where you're networking with me or what have you. And I never, ever, ever, right, during the close, use the word cost or fee. I always use the word investment. Insurance is an investment, right? I like to make sure that if all heck breaks loose, I'm covered, right? That is an investment in my business. The traveling, that's an investment in your peace of mind and sanity, right? To get away. Custom software development, that's an investment in being able to do more in your business more effectively because of that custom software that is done, right? Creating a website, that's an investment in your business so that you could show up on Google and be, SEOified and found and all those things. So it's an investment is what I like to say. And I always use that term as well in my sales process. So I always think it's important that we kind of go through that sales process. And then, of course, we get to delivering your value, right? Deliver on everything you said that you were going to deliver. I keep my executive summary document so that when I'm going through the client fulfillment period, right? And some clients are 6 months, some are a month, and it's a one and done handbook. Some are long term, and I stay with them 4 and 5. And my longest client is going on 5 years this March. So delivering the value, staying connected, delivering on what you said you would deliver, making sure that while you're delivering the service, that's when you get a testimonial. Okay. Not, okay, we're all done. Did you like your cruise? Oh, I'm so glad. Bye. Right? No. Get the testimonials from your clients during the fulfillment of the product and service. Don't forget that those are valuable assets in terms of those testimonials that you could use on your sales pages, on your landing pages, in your ebooks, on your product pages. An existing customer is always going to be a path to reach new customers. But remember, they can have a recurring cycle, and that's what we call the lifetime value of a client or a customer, right? The repeat business that you can get from that person because you've stayed connected, or become a referral of those. And if you're not part of our referral groups, then you want to expand your sales force. We have several referral groups that get together and talk about that. So definitely look at that for the chamber. I was part of Power Partners for quite some time, about 4 or 5 years, but definitely consider expanding your sales force through the many referral groups that we have in the chamber. And again, ask for the referrals and testimonies without hesitation. Make sure that if you have a newsletter, that they're on it. Why? They continue to see you again and again. Now, I'm going to give you a quick overview of the AIDA model. So AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. I'm going to just fast forward to this next one. This is definitely a screenshot ability one that you want, okay? Because the AIDA says that there's a journey into buying, right? There's a journey as someone who's going to buy from you goes through, right? First, you got to get their attention, right? What is it that they see? Maybe it's a member to member ad with the chamber that we can use as part of the marketing arm as members. And if you're not a member in here, then you need to consider membership because there's valuable benefits that I think sometimes we fail to remember. And then, of course, then there's interest. Maybe they saw your ad, they went on your website, maybe they saw you a few times on social media. They say it takes, 5 to 7 touch points to really create a sale, to make that sale. How many times are they seeing you show up on social media? And that's not selling, 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 right? It's saying, here's some value, here's some information. If you go on any of my social media, particularly Instagram and LinkedIn, the Instagram is at HBL Resources. You'll rarely see sales uh, posts, right? You'll see a lot more informational. I love series. I do a lot of series. It's information, information, feeding, feeding, feeding. And then here's something, inexpensive, a $9 ebook on my website, right? So that they can come in, sign up for something. Maybe it's the free newsletter that we push out, right? And now they're interested. Right? And then they desire something. What else are they looking at? How many site visits do they have? How do they go from that to now clicking and getting that ebook, right? That's the action. They actually pay you for something, right? I woke up the other day and I found that somebody had downloaded a $12.97 ebook. Well, guess what? Now they're in my funnel. Now they're in my CRM, and I use Turbo Links, an amazing, amazing, also a chamber member, Andy Hernandez. Anyway, I could go on and on about all things sales, because guess what? Everybody sells. And as business owners, we must sell. So let's cue up the conversation about the model of human behavior. I'm looking for any questions. It's a quiet group today, Angie, or am I maybe going a little bit too fast? I know I
No,
try
I
to get
think you're
as
giving
much
great
value.
info. We're just
Okay,
trying to soak it in, soak it.
okay. Remember, I'm trying to cram it all in, and I'm not even covering everything. Okay, so just take the nuggets as they come. And so when we think about the model of human behavior, DISC, how many have at least heard about DISC? Maybe you've heard Myers-Briggs or any of those other ones. Anybody give me a digital thumbs up, or yep, one Paulo. Who else we got in here? That's it? Nobody else? No, I'm looking for the digital hands. Okay. So with that, let me give you a quick overview. And then I think we have a handout that was put inside the chat. Now would be a great time for you to take a look at that, get it ready to fill in all of those blanks. But the model of human behavior really is very, very ancient, right? Old model. And just for some background, the model of human behavior, right, 2,400 years ago, we had philosophers, most notably Hippocrates, look and start to realize and recognize that there were some differences in behaviors, but they did follow some patterns. Okay. And that was the most earliest philosophers, right? The most earliest philosophers started to see those kinds of in patterns, right? So fast forward to the early 20s, where Dr. William Marston, okay, interestingly enough, the creator of Wonder Woman, okay, Google it, also started to realize that we have intrinsic drives, things that are natural and innate to us. And he theorized that people were motivated by these four intrinsic, right, natural tendencies in our behavior and our behavior patterns. And so DISC was born. DISC being the concept that's been applied in many ways: leadership, selling, communicating, motivating, you name it, right? It is applied in all of those things. So let's talk about what that model looks like and why it's so important. It's really part of our psychological need, right? I think I saw somebody in wellness, right? We have physical needs, the basic needs: food, water, clothing, shelter, safety, security. And then on top of that lives the feeling of belonging, relationships, connection. Don't we need all of that for sales? I belong, I'm connected, we have a relationship, right? Because nobody does business with a logo, right? They do business with you. If you move from one travel agency to another, guess what? They're following you, not the logo. And so DISC is important because it addresses that relationship connectivity. We can build better rapport. And so these natural drives is pace and priority. Pace being how fast or how slow. when we think about pace, right? I always like to kind of cue it up by saying, I'm always in the mall. Give me a digital thumbs up if you're the fast zipping through all the things, right? It's like, get out of my way, I'm coming through. You don't have time for the Sunday shoppers, right? And give me a digital hand. Let me see, where are my fast pace people out there, right? And then we have our slower pace, right? Those that do like to browse and like to just be more eased, and that pace is fast or slow. We'll talk about that. And then the priority, what's important. But when you look at the model of human behavior, when you think about pace and priorities, you can draw a circle if you don't have the handout. Has a handout gone out? I saw you put something in the chat there.
Yes, everybody should have gotten it by email right
Okay,
before we started.
excellent.
But if anyone doesn't see it or doesn't have it, just drop me something in the chat. I'll re-upload it.
Okay. And so you can just pop that in the chat as well. So these drives, when you think about the natural drive of priority, you can put the line right down the center, and that's what you have in your handout, that line right down the center. And then the second line kind of goes from east to west, right? Or from west to east, rather, right? Horizontally, and that separates the pace. When we think about pace, you got to think about the rabbit. These individuals, they talk fast, they move fast, they read fast. I mean, they're just fast paced. But you can also consider that outgoing, right? You might have been the social butterfly at school. You might have been someone who is just the one who connects people. I see some smiles, like maybe that's resonating with somebody, right? And so then we have that slower pace. They tend to be a little bit more reserved, right? In school, we might have called them the wallflower, right? In school, they might have been the one that was really quiet and they never talk much, right? That's slower pace. And when we think about slow pace from an academic standpoint, we don't mean that they're slow paced in their thinking. They process information slower, right? They might be individuals that need a little bit more time to finish their thoughts and to finish their ideas. Well, I got news for you. Sometimes those fast-paced people, they try to finish the sentences. That's really annoying, but that's a different class altogether. Okay. And so then we have priority. What is your priority? Where are my note takers? Where are the people who love to just write things down just so we can check it off at the end of the day that I did it, right? I got lists on lists, and my lists have lists, right? We're all about the task being accomplished. That is our priority. And then we have those whose priority is more importantly people. They'll take time to get to know. They really remember names well. They might be late to a meeting because they were so inclined to just be chatting with their prospect, right? And so when we put the whole thing together, this is what you see, the DISC model, and you have that in your handout. You'll see the D, the I, the S, and the C. And the names and the titles, some models change the titles. You might see dominant in the direct, inspiring, steady. You might see supportive, cautious, right? You might see compliant. So many of them have different names, but this is the one that we use. The direct, they're strong-willed, they're strong-minded, they accept challenges, they take action. I mean, I like to say that the green is there on the go, go, go all the time. And then we have the eyes. The eyes are the fast, people-oriented people. So much like the D's, they're fast, 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 but they're more about people, right? They like participating on teams, telling jokes, getting recognition, entertaining. These are typically the people that are the magnets at the networking events, right? You see a lot of people around them. And then you've got your studies. Well, the reds, I like to say, the inspiring types, they are parties in a box. Pull their finger and party favors pop out of their head. They are put on your red shoes and dance, okay? And then there's our studies. These are the helpful, supportive, usually behind the scenes people. They're slower paced, but they're people oriented. Think about your very best friend. We use the blue color because it's their true blue friends. They're great listeners. They're predictable. I mean, they're just the give the shirt off their back probably was an S personality, a steady or supportive. And then finally, cautious, right? The compliant, the cautious. These are sticklers for quality information. They like planning and being systematized and checking and rechecking for accuracy and double checking. I'm sure Google was created by a C, okay? Because they love information, information, information. And all of this is going to be very important when we think about our selling. So in front of you, you'll see a couple of things. You see a section that says needs. So we're going to think about it from a perspective that says after food, water, clothing, and shelter, this is what they need. And we're going to start with our Ds, our directs, okay? After food, water, clothing, and shelter, they need three things. They need challenges, choices, and control. Challenges, choices, and control. Why is that important? Well, it's important because when these individuals take a look at your proposal, when you meet with them for the sales conversation, they want choices. Do you remember when I said I give three options, right? You could have the optimal solution that addresses everything that you said you wanted and needed. And then you have the intermediate support services. And then you have the essential. Like if you don't do anything at all, oh my gosh, please at least get your handbook, right? Whatever that looks like in your business. And when we give them these choices, right? A, B, or C, whatever, call it whatever you want, they now have choices, but it also gives them something else, control of the sale, right? Because that's what they need. Whenever you sell to a D, you might think about it because they are fast paced, they're talking fast, they're cut to the chase, tell me the numbers, how's it implemented, how quick can we do this, right? All of those kinds of things. They're cut to the chase kind of people. But they also might be sharing with you what it is they need to get done, right? Because it's what am I going to accomplish? What task is at hand, right? So that's why listening is so important in the sales conversation. So they need challenges, choices, and control. They purchase results and performance, right? What's the bottom line? What's it going to do? What are the results that you've gotten from other clients? All of that information is critically important because their focus is achieving whatever the goal is that they have that they are considering you for. Okay. So they purchase results and performance. Their focus is achieving goals or solving the problem. They're probably looking at you to solve a problem. That's why you always want to talk about it. You know, at the meeting, you said that you had this problem. This is where that problem gets fixed, right? You're always telling the employees all the time about their PTO benefits, and you're tired of mentioning it 30 different times for all your 30 different employees. That's why you need a handbook. You don't have to do it anymore, right? They desire respect. So write that in. They desire that when you say you're going to call them, that you call them, right? Don't say, I'll get back to you by Friday and then don't. Okay. You've heard the model. Um, People need to know, like, and trust you. How many have seen that? Give me a raised hand or shake your head. I see your faces, right? You've heard that? Well, I'm going to tell you that it's wrong for half of these people, half of the equation. That's the people side. I need to know you, I need to like you, and I need to trust you. If you're on the task side, guess what? I need to know you, I need to trust you first, and then I'll like you because I can trust you. Okay? I can't trust you, I'm not going to do business. I need to like you, and then I'll do business. Completely different model, right? Respect, return calls, and do what you say you're going to do. And if you're not going to call them or get the proposal by Friday, give them a ring and say, hey, I'm running a little behind on it. I'll get it by Monday, right? Or whatever that looks like. They decide very quickly, right? If you're dealing with a D, they're going to know that they're going to do business with you or not. And then if they um if they are interested, they're going to negotiate. Well, can I have this and then that? Can I do this instead of that? Can you start in December instead of November, right? And they want you to get to the point. Listen, before I understood the model of human behavior, I literally told somebody who wanted to sell me a payroll solution, and this is going back at least 25, 30 years ago, right? Early in my career. I literally said, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I literally said, I don't really need the sales dog and pony show. Can we just get straight to the bottom line? Awful, awful. As a D, I'm a D, okay? You wouldn't guess it from now, but I'm like mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, I broke rapport, right? They're like, well, geez, because they're the get to know, they were on the S side, da 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 da, right? This is important so that you create better rapport with the people that you're looking to support and serve with your products. Okay. So now let's go to the eyes. Again, I am looking, let me see my window closed for the chat. So I just want to make sure. Okay. So let's move to our eyes. Our eyes are our inspiring people, right? They are parties in a box. They need, right? Their needs, food, water, clothing, shelter. They need fun. They need recognition, and they need to be liked. That's the part of the people side of who they are that is so valuable and important. They want to connect with people, right? They want to have a little fun while we're at work. If you don't make your product fun, they're probably not going to buy. If you're bored by your product, they're going to be bored too and they won't buy, okay? Because they also purchase prestige and image. If you visit my website, hblresources.com, you'll see the logos scrolling through my website. You know what I do that for? Not to be hoity-toity and showboat, because my eyes want to know, who else have I worked for, right? Who else is using your product and service? I want to be in that in crowd, right? Those eyes tend to have the latest technology. They, tend to be very fashionable and ahead of the curve, right? All of those things. And so should you show that? Absolutely, to the eyes, right? Oh, I work with Virgin Hotels, and they go, ooh, I want to work with you, right? It's important that they're in that frame of reference. Now, I want to caveat something. We're all a blend of all four. No one is better or worse. They're just different, right? We need all of those styles, right? And so I say that we're talking about these styles from a frame of reference that is the primary driver, right? The primary, the highest one when you take the assessment, the highest trait, right? The highest style is the word I was looking for. Okay. So their focus is people, right? Because of that connection to people and what's popular, right? People and what is popular is their focus. They desire fun, right? So have a good time. If you're going to do a sales presentation, maybe take them to have coffee and go out and talk a little bit before you go straight to business, right? And they decide emotionally. They're very feel type of individuals. I usually get a lot of realtors, right? But when you're a travel agent, right, you might want to say to someone, imagine how you'll feel on the deck of this sprawling Virgin Hotel, top tier, right? Whatever that looks like. Imagine how you'll feel when the whole family is together on this family reunion cruise that you're going on, right? Because they are very emotional. They decide emotionally, and they want you to be excited, right? Now, I used to say, you know what, uh, there's not a lot of excitement that you can get out of HR. But when I talk about benefits and perk programs and all of that, that's where we can bring in the fun. If it's creating websites, right? Imagine how great it's going to be when you relaunch your new website. That's excitement, right? And so imagine how you'll feel when your insurance is all in place for your business and you're going to be protected, right? It's a sense of excitement. And then if they're interested, they're just going to tell you how they feel, right? I feel like I need the insurance. I feel like I'm not so sure I need this, right? But so listen to emotional content, emotional words, okay? Now let's move to our S's. Our S's after food, water, clothing, shelter. They need appreciation, right? That pat on the back. They need security and familiarity. Now, if your product or service is going to change things, articulate what things might stay the same, right? Yes, we're going to be changing the look of your website, but it's still going to be on WordPress. right? Yes, we're going to change XYZ, but the menu might stay the same, right? Say, articulate what the familiar areas are, right? And then, I'm sorry, appreciation, security, familiarity, and peace and harmony. If you get S's all together in a room, they just want to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Can't we all just get along, right? So make things easy, right? Peace and harmony. They purchase ease and familiarity. How easy is it? Oh, and for the insurance person in the room, if you can tell them that you will call the previous insurance company and tell them for you, there you are gold, baby. Why? They don't want to have that call. They don't want to break rapport with someone to say, I'm not going to work with you anymore. Why? They're so people focused and connected. I see a lot of facial expression and all that. This is resonating, right? We see and maybe we know somebody, maybe we are the person I'm talking about here, right? So their focus is helping others, right? They tend to be that behind the scenes in the back office, they don't like the recognition, don't put me in front of the room kind of people. Why? That's the extrovert in them, right? That slower pace, outgoing and introverted part of who they are. Don't showboat them. They won't like it. So that's another class. Okay, a little nugget for the next class. Okay, so their focus is helping others. They desire harmony and absence of conflict. That's where that piece comes in, where if you can call the other company for them and say, hey, they're moving to a new company, they would love that. The D's, they're like, not a problem. I'll take that call. I'll make sure that they know, no big deal. S's, because of that people connectivity, that might help the sale a little bit, okay? They decide slowly. Remember, I told you I waited 18 months for a client who stayed with me 4 years? He was an S, okay? They decide slowly. Do not push the sale. Stay connected. If there is someone else that might be if there is someone else who might be part of the sales decision making, you might ask if they should be invited to the conversation, right? That kind of thing. And then they want you to be sincere and kind. Remember, I said you need to know, like, and trust. Remember, that's the side that we're on, the people side. They need to know, like, and trust you. You will easily break rapport with someone if you push the sale, you get too pushy. Why? It's ooh, you're coming at me, and that doesn't feel good, right? That's that peace, security, harmony, kumbaya, right? Thing that we're aggravating within them, okay? And so be sincere and kind. The S's are the best BSometers. Do you know what that is, BSometer? That's a new word, okay? So they can tell. So be sincere. And if you're not being sincere, then just don't say it. Don't fudge, right? And then if they're interested, unfortunately, these are just the ones that are going to take their time to decide, okay? So be patient. And again, I'm talking about that high S personality where the S attribute is higher on their assessment, right? On their assessments, not a test. How we doing out there? Am I losing anybody? Let me see. I don't think that I have any questions yet. Okay. I see that you are an S, Angela. I know that. Angie, I know that about you. So she can confirm all of everything I just said. Okay. So let's talk about our C's. We'll close up with our C's. I might go a little bit over. So C's after food, water, clothing, shelter need quality answers, excellence, and value. Okay, these are the ones that I have a 13-page detailed proposal for. My proposal addresses every single one of these people. Just in the case that I haven't figured it out, usually I can figure out what my client is, right? And be able to keep in mind, I'm always careful with these hour-long conversations because I don't want people to think that this is pigeonholing people or anything like that, right? We're a blend of all four, and it's really the focus of the knowledge of this is really to better connect with people. That's the goal, right? To better connect with people. Okay, so quality answers, excellence in value is what they need. They purchase, same as what they need, value. These are the individuals who you really want to talk to them about that value proposition. What makes you, I got three proposals. What makes you unique, right? What's the reason I should hire your company or go with your insurance company, right? That's where you have that value proposition included. Their focus is process and procedure. They'll ask about when can we get it done? How long will it take? Who, what, when, where, why? They're just question, 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 question. And we'll get to them asking a lot of questions because that's the answer to if they're interested, they're just going to ask more questions. They desire details, right? They're going to ask all the details and never, ever, 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 ever fudge an answer with a C. They're asking a question that they might already know the answer to, and they want to know if you do. And Angie, I think you're an SC if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So they want the details, right? Who, what, when, where, why. They're gonna ask all the things. They'll compare it. You know, we tried this before. Why should I think it's gonna work now? Right? Those kinds of things. Be ready for those questions. They decide carefully, right? They could take less time than an S, but they're gonna think carefully, right? They decide carefully, and they want you to be credible and honest. If you give them the wrong answer or a fudged answer to a question that they already might know the answer to, what have you done? You've broken the trust. That's so important on this side. Okay? Know, trust, and like. And then if they're interested, they're just going to ask more questions. Okay. I do a session where we talk about the blind spots of all of these styles and the blind spots of each of them, right? The D's, they finish people's sentences. The I's sometimes can't keep track of the details. The S's can be just bowled over because you say yes to everything, right? And the C's make a decision already. You have enough information, right? That kind of thing. But that gives you some tools that I hope you can apply to your sales processes. I have done as best I could in the hour. I usually don't do this in an hour. Usually I do this for SCORE as well. If you're not familiar with SCORE, I am a 10 years now training and doing workshops for SCORE. This is one of the SCORE workshops. I usually get an hour and a half for that one. So if you're interested and you want to attend that one, it should be coming up in the beginning of the year. It's a lot more detail. And even if you sign up and just get the recording so you can fast forward through the pieces that we already did, then you're more than welcome to do that as well. And I'd be tickled to see a familiar name in the webinar. I appreciate your time. I've kept it to 1 hour and rolled through everything. I will go ahead and send Angie the filled out version in the event you maybe missed a spot, and you'll be able to be very well served. If I can ever do anything for you, I'm Lisa Perez with HBL Resources, a full service HR consulting firm, a chamber member of 14 years now, I think, the entirety of my business. And I serve on your board of directors as well as your vice chair of governance. So it's a pleasure to support and serve you. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. As I mentioned, we're going to send a follow-up email with some of those resources for you. And we really appreciate taking the time to be with us today. Thank you so much.